Welcome to Hashtag Growth, first panel, and I think this is going to be a really interesting one. We have a very diverse panel, representation from different industries, publisher network, real estate, healthcare, and the enablers as well of this ecosystem from Shopify and Find. I think first thing I really want to perhaps ask a quick question and quick round on that is, we talked about, the different data points, the different experiences, online to offline. I think O2O is not just offline to online, it's also online to offline, right? So there are businesses which are enabled online and then realized offline, and vice versa, right? So many data points. How do you spend your day in uncomplicating this complex ecosystem, compartmentalizing your day to understand where to focus upon? I just want to understand quickly, what do you come across as challenges? How do you kind of overcome? Rupali, maybe you want to give it a jab the first.
So first of all, thank you very much. I'm quite under the weather. I've just returned yesterday from Hyderabad. So this is my second growth mixer that I'm speaking on, and I must congratulate MoEngage and the partners. This is wonderful stage setup, and compared to last year, I think this is more vibrant. Now, question that has been asked, right? How do we go really omni-channel and build those capabilities to be able to be in the moment? See, guys, fundamentally, the answer lies is what kind of a customer identity stitching, that is more precisely what kind of a user profiles that you can build with the help of insights, signals, multi-source, multi-touch point data that you are adding into a system and bringing the core to one. So when you talk about one Rupali, you should be able to understand what is the needs and the barriers, triggers, and interest of Rupali, right? And then being in the moment in itself is one of the tall asks for a marketeer. And that precisely need, just as in the beginning we heard from the Disney Hotstar story, I myself have been from Vodafone to Z5, have now with the healthcare industry, which is Dr. Reddy's, have seen magnificent business models with very curious ask of how data can help contributing the top line contribution, can influence the top line in the funnel of a business. We all see good numbers on many mega case studies, posters, saying personalization has driven 27% uplift in the revenue, or targeted promotion and segmentation has driven such kind of impressive engagement. This all starts with the data and the insights that you gather. Number two is how effectively, efficiently, and with the least room for data lapses, you can build the effective, or let's say unique customer profiles by stitching the data across multi-channels, multi-sources, multi-data sets, insights. How the customer journey insighting will play a role in terms of understanding the customer better. And then your content creation engine should have that kind of a volume and velocity that is serving to all these channels that we have seen, Ravi explained, SMS, WhatsApp, service messages, push notifications. In our industry currently, if I talk about, the offline is when the customer is interacting with the person, right? And then we have to collect all these data signals into the CDP or a data lake that we are using. And then with the help of these signals, the customer profile gets augmented, and the customer profile then gives you these triggers. And as we heard about testing and experimentation, very critical point, to be able to understand and insight customer journeys and the signals better so that a marketer know what to serve when and how and which channel at what frequency. So my answer to the question is, the more we invest ourselves into customer journey analytics, continuous insighting as to what are the needs and interest trigger barriers of a particular customers, and then build this journey seamlessly. Just don't think about it's digital, so it does not have anything to do with the physical world. In companies who are hybrid, who are not really a digital first, but have a business models which are like a brick and mortar plus digital. In our case, it becomes very, I would say, critical to stitch these customers and identities and learn and then give experimental shot and keep on learning on them.
Yeah, great. So making it very customer-centric first, so that you are able to look at more from a customer point of view and then understand where the gaps are, and then building your solutions around. Yeah, that's so. Yeah, great. So next question, I think Ashish, I want to ask you, since we're talking about specifically in this scenario, the journeys are broken in your ecosystem, right? Unless and until, like you were mentioning, unless until somebody sees a sample flat or meets a guy and try to understand the project timelines or something, doesn't kind of really convert. But consideration set is built on online. What all things you look at, and what are the early challenges you felt, were there, and now you look at, this is something I want to solve every day, or want to see as this metric every day to kind of understand the business.
All right. Great. So, hi everyone, I'm Ashish. I basically look at the digital presence for Lodha Group. Now, I'm sure a lot of you would be aware, Lodha Group is a developer and specializing mostly in residential real estate. Now, the interesting thing about real estate, when it comes to the question of online, it's a very different beast from a lot of other products. I'll give you a couple of critical challenges on how real estate works, so you appreciate the magnitude of the problem which we have to kind of face. First thing is that any customer of ours, he will buy a product 99% of the time only once. Any customer of ours, when he is coming to buy a product, he is coming with a whole expectations of maybe hundreds of influencers around him. He has his own thoughts about what is it he wants. His friends, his family, his co-workers, his peers, random strangers on the street will all have an opinion that what are you going to be buying into. He is coming in with a very a sense of fear that I should not get taken for a ride, I should not get cheated. He's also coming in with a very emotional kind of an approach, because this is a product he's purchasing where he is going to consume it for the next maybe a couple of decades. For most of his waking life, he's going to be consuming that product day in and day out. He's buying this thing which is going to be used by his family, by his children. He makes a wrong decision, his life is screwed. He makes a right decision, his grandchildren are set up for life. So there's a lot of expectations that are resting on the head of somebody who's coming in. Now, with this kind of a background, you also add in the fact that it's very hard to get clear information about the product which he's buying for. Details about financing, details about the viability of the product, will it get finished on time? Even things like, what is the area like outside the place? Am I going to be able to approach it easily? Is there construction coming up? Will the value increase? These are all very gray areas. It's hard to find out details about this. So with this set of challenges, the question was now, how do we approach this from an online approach? And as Navdeep mentioned, real estate is something which nobody is ever going to buy online. They want to come inside, they want to touch it, they want to look around, they want to get that experience of where is it, where is the wind coming from, where does the sunlight come from, can I smell a sewer nearby, or is it safe? What's the view like? This is all very touch and feel kind of a product. So this, how we kind of approached this was, given that there's so much gray area about the content, let's build up a good bank of content which people can consume, which implies, again, a clear content strategy and an SEO to make sure that people are finding this content. We need to have an understanding of how people are coming to us, what kind of content they're consuming, what's their journey on the site, where do they go, where do they drop off, what are the things that they use, the features they use on the site, which means a strong analytics base, which means a strong CDP system, which gives us an insight onto how those funnels are proceeding. And obviously, then once we have all of this, the approach that we basically take is, we have to kind of get in, understand the flow of the journey that the customer is taking, make sure that we're able to guide him along the right paths, make sure that he doesn't drop off, make sure he doesn't get any misconceptions. This is all something that is happening online. So we are kind of controlling that experience of what he's consuming online in terms of the content, in terms of the experiences which can come in the form of, let's say, chats, it can come in the form of virtual reality experiences, digital twins, which kind of act like a trailer for the product. Get enough of a taste of the product so he's intrigued, so he can then come and actually experience it physically. And as he kind of proceeds along the journey, make sure that we are able to then address his questions and give him the assurance that he's looking for to be able to make that decision going forward. So this is basically where our entire online experience kind of comes into play, to make sure that he's on the right path, he's getting what he wants, we understand what is it that he's looking for, and we are able to basically deliver it to him.
Yeah, so building personalized experiences on your digital assets becomes a very important case for you, right? Because
absolutely, because every customer is very, very different for the product.
Lovely. Let's move to the enablement side. I think, Siddhant, I'm going to move this question to you. Shopify have been a critical part in the growth of D2C story, like, be it digital native or traditional brands who started off their D2C journeys. What are the key things you saw that, these are the early nuances that you had to build in the product, specifically from a point of view of offline to online or O2O largely? What are the things that you came up first and you thought, you were not expecting, but it came, and then you have to build those products and enhancements?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good question. I'll just start with some context, right? The context that we're living in today. Just a few years ago, we had like a pandemic. We all started shopping online. And now the pandemic is gone and offline has come back in a big way, right? This is also probably the only decade where there's a war happening, there's an economic crisis happening. So the only thing you can probably take away from all this is that change is a constant, right? And I think commerce is no different in that sense, right? So that's the context that we operate in today. And so what brands really need to do is change constantly to meet this demand, right? Now, offlines come back in a big way. There are really three things that I feel are central to any brand sort of creating a seamless experience for their customers, both online and offline, right? First is your technology. Second is your operations. And then third, it's your marketing, right? You have to fix first two before you invest in the third, right? So I'll start with technology. We've seen that over the last few years, flexible commerce has sort of really picked up. And that means that every brand wants to be able to use tools that let them get value, time to value within weeks, not within months, right? And that's what I think tools like Shopify, tools like MoEngage, Find, all enable brands to do, right? So that's one thing. And the tools are already available. It's about how you use them also, right? And you want to be, as a brand, you want to make sure that you're investing in tools that are future-proof, best ROI, right? So those are some of the considerations that you would take along the way, right? So that's one piece. You can fix that. Once you've done that, I think a big part of creating an experience for your customers which is seamless is making sure your ops are in place, which involves to a large extent, it depends on where you are as a brand, right? Who you are. A D2C brand's journey will be very different from a traditional brand, right? A D2C brand is thinking about offline for the first time. They've just been investing in online. It's fairly simple. You use your, technology tools to set up an online store. You start your performance marketing, and you can go from a 0 to 100 quickly, but from 100 to 10,000, you need to be cross-channel. So now they're thinking of offline, right? And for them, then that means making sure they have the right kind of, resources from an investment perspective. They have the right strategy in terms of knowing where their buyers are, right? And figuring all that out. Whereas if you're a traditional brand, the answer can be very different. It's more about how do you build buy-in into an org which has been primarily offline? How do you make sure that your teams are set for, this seamless experience? If there's a person in store, He's been primarily, incentivized for sales in store. How do you make sure he's being incentivized for even fulfilling online orders through your store? How do you make sure that and this is not just the store folks, right? It's all the way up to the leadership. So you have to kind of build that out, and that depends on the brand. And then once you've done that, I think, tools like MoEngage, which can really help you scale up, right? And create the best-in-class sort of personalized, communications for your customers based on the segmentation. I think those are some of the things that I think brands need to figure out in terms of like the nuance of creating a seamless experience online versus offline.
Great. Thanks. So I'm going to move to Hemant. Publishing business, and you're the second largest publisher in that particular state, in Maharashtra specifically, was very offline heavy always, right? We used to make money out of subscriptions or being purchased offline. To suddenly the ecosystem is selling inventory online now on the media side. How do you look at these experiences to be built to make sure that you have revenue going, and what all things you look at on a day-to-day basis to have a control of your business?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. So we are into the business of content creation, and we are the largest read Marathi daily in the country. In spite of being present only in a single state and operating in a single language, we are the 5th largest media house by readership in the country, which also brings for a very important fact, which is the importance of vernacular languages or Indic languages in our country. And while it has been, they have been in the print business for the last 100 years, institutionally for the last 50 years, been number one. Typically, when I talk about Maharashtra, I'm setting a context, and then I'll talk about two, three different aspects. Maharashtra is the second largest state in our country in terms of both geography as well as population. And the largest state when it comes to contributing to digitally wired audiences in our country. Close to 15.5%, 16% of India's entire internet population is based in Maharashtra. Now, the print readership, say for example, is X. When we launched digital 5 years back, we had an opportunity to make it X plus Y. So given the fact that the total population of Maharashtra is 135 million, out of which 82 million people can read and write in Marathi, we had a huge opportunity to kind of penetrate the market beyond the print readership through our foray into digital. So today, 5 years down into the business, we started with close to 500,000 users a month, unique users a month. Currently, we do 25 million unique users a month. When I had joined, we were around 8 to 10 million page views. We are now close to 300 million page views. So how's this journey been? And for any publisher, these are interesting and challenging times too. So one aspect was, when I look at the brand presence and penetration in rest of Maharashtra is equivalent to the way Tata Salt was in every homes. And the idea was there to leverage a very strong connect with the brand which was built over the last 50 years through digital. So one of the most important programs which I launched even before we were kind of scaling up a tech stack, etc. We have, across the 35 districts of Maharashtra, we have a very robust on-ground programs. Every year, close to 1 million women across the 35 districts of Maharashtra, they, in the physical world, sign up for a community program called Lokmat Sakhi Manch. So within the first 2 years, I launched a pan-Maharashtra convergence project where our idea was to digitally capture the data of these 1 million women. The first year was extremely tough, right from the time the person who was gathering the data to the person who was sharing the data or parting with the data. Challenges in terms of many of them didn't have email IDs, they were hesitant to share mobile numbers. I would say, lack of great infrastructure from our end in terms of making the whole process seamless. But I would say now we have, through our own learnings, mastered the art of collecting the data. And I would say we have close to now, over the last 3 years of consecutive exercise, 1 million clean records with us of women, basis their location, their interest, and their affinity to different kinds of programs, etc. This gave us an opportunity to launch an online version of a place, content place called lokmatsakhi.com, which is completely a women lifestyle dedicated portal. And you would be surprised that within 6 months of launch, we had close to around 5 million women, Marathi-speaking women, starting to consume the content. So this was a great way we have started to converge any of our offline activity to capturing data and servicing them online by either passing on them invites or coupons, free coupons with the hyperlocal market retailers we tie up with, and also serving them content over a period of time. So it's quite a journey there. On the other side, if you look at the core digital news publishing business, there are 2-3 parameters or metrics which are extremely important. The number of users who come to consume your content, the frequency at which they consume the content in terms of the number of visits in a month, and how many pieces of content do they actually consume. This creates an inventory for any publisher, which they monetize through various means and tools. Now, what we realized very early stage, for us to start capturing first-party data would be very important. So we built it out much ahead of the curve. And while we still have a very large percentage, phenomenally large percentage of users who are anonymous users, but what has really helped us through this journey is to offer them personalized news. And if you look at the conversion of a visit to content consumption because of your knowledge of the anonymous users and the affinity to certain content categories, I think so it's a very profitable thing to invest in. Lastly, I would say we did a program for JioMart. I see a huge opportunity where the retail business can converge well, shake hands with a publisher business, because if I am able to offer a very contextual discovery of product or an experience of shopping at the point of content creation, it is great. So I would like to reward my customer with a voucher, which could be redeemed online or offline. So we did this activity for one of our brand partner, where they offered 500 rupees free voucher during Ganesh Chaturthi last year through the means of a contest. And their primary objective was to collect data. We got 7 lakh users from Maharashtra participate in the contest. We captured their name, mobile number, email ID, and their city of residence, but also the hyperlocal location through the PIN code. And the retailer was able to distribute the database of 7 lakh customers through the various stores present across Maharashtra. Now it really helps both of us because through this program, I was able to drive traffic and know my customers, and they benefited in terms of being able to drive traffic back to their retail outlets. Now just imagine if this handshake happens at a most strategic level, and you are able to continuously not only cross-pollinate customer experiences, data, etc. I think so it can become a very interesting format to look at.
That's very interesting. Understanding the context of offline users before building anything online and digital assets. I mean, understanding their segment, their preferences, affinity, so that when you build your digital assets, you already know that context, what kind of content they will consume or products they would like. I think becomes really important specifically for traditional brands or where offline heavy brands and had an access to that particular data. That brings me to you, Harsh. You've built one of the largest omni-channel retail enablement platforms, right? What are those? Did you face similar sort of questions, coming in from these traditional brands or retail brands, okay, fulfillment kahan se hoga, how do I manage my inventories? What are the things that you came up with and you thought, I need to build this particular tool which can take care of all these requirements from the brand?
So we run an omni-channel and a unified commerce platform for about 600 brands across 30,000 stores in India. And I think the simple question that we ask our brand partners is something that I'd like to ask here. Is with a simple show of hands, how many of you interact with customers across multiple channels, both online and offline? Simple show of hands. Okay. Now, if you were to go back to redrawing the architecture of what your serving looks like to your customers, how closely would it match what you currently have today? How many of them say that it matches exactly what we have today? No one, right? And that's usually the problem that we face with this, that channels get added incrementally, but unfortunately to serve consumers it doesn't add up as easily as that. So the enablement piece, when you talk about from an architecture perspective, is you pretty much need to differentiate your system of records from a system of interaction and try and create a fungibility of your assets across wherever they are located. In a simple way, for a retailer, 85% of their inventory is sitting in the store, waiting for a customer to walk in. But the customer's anywhere. Right? So can you create fungibility of their inventory so that no matter where the customer is, I can show that same shirt or that same top or that same trouser or that same shoe wherever the customer is. Right? You've gone about picking stored locations in order to marry potential consumer densities in the city or in towns, in a mall on a high street. Then why are you now only thinking about the stores waiting for again the customer to walk in, but not serving their catchment across all channels that the customer is on? So if we start asking these questions, given the legacy systems that retailers today have, or all of us have, and may only over time get to replace, how can you create that serving middle layer which can provide fungibility to your assets? I think that becomes supremely important to solve for. And then Siddhant touched upon the fact that what does that mean in terms of the skills needed for a store associate today, who is only required to show you what they have? Right? But now if that same store associate needs to serve customers across multiple channels, you could have bought somewhere and coming and returning it in the store, or vice versa. Or you're in that store but the product's not available in that store, it may be in some other store in some other place, but still telling the customer to place the order, we'll ship it to you. The demands of this fungibility of your assets on your workforce is very different today than it was 5 years ago. Of course, COVID gave a great shot in the arm to all of us, especially working in the retail, or especially working in the online enablement space. But how do you percolate that at a system level and at a workforce level? I think that's something that we've got to work out. And there, a large part of it will be built internally within organizations. But coming back to what parts of it do you need to work with partners versus what parts do you build internally? So if you draw the rate of change versus how much core is that functionality to you, you almost come to a 2x2 matrix. And then choose what parts of this do you build internally, what parts of it do you build with a partner. Even when you're choosing the partner, is the choice of partner going to be based on price and commodity, or based on value and sort of fundamental complexity and capability? I think that is the conversation that we have with our brands. Right? So today, if you walk into any mall in India, amongst the fashion and lifestyle space, maybe 40% of the retailers are using Find for their omni-channel capabilities. And it sort of comes back to that, saying we need to create a middle layer which can disassociate our systems to what is being used to serve our customers. Today you're sitting on an SAP, Oracle, Adobe, Microsoft, any of those, which are not flexible or fungible in order to serve on Myntra, Amazon, Flipkart, your own D2C channel, your franchisees, your large format stores like Shopper Stop, your own stores across franchisee networks, or even your distributors going to general trade retailers. So having that architectural discussion and identifying what areas are needing to be flexible, what areas need to be fungible, I think that's where you need to spend a lot of time on.
I think one more word that I want to add is agility while being fungible, and how quickly can I serve that experience, and is my architecture able to enable that ecosystem or not? I think that becomes really important. Somehow just see the time is over, but I am going to ask, if we can ask last question, perhaps in one line, what are the trends, perhaps challenges you see in near future, perhaps in your own industries respectively, which are imperative to solve, or audience should look out for? This is something that I need to kind of look for and probably solve for, and start thinking today, if I can have one-liner answers on this. Hemant, if you want to, Ashish, please go ahead.
So I'll just put in one thing. Obviously, the one thing which everybody's kind of been thinking about, AI is basically here, and it represents both an opportunity as well as a threat. So if you're doing anything which is like in the creative space, which is operational in nature, then this is something which you need to get on top of quickly, because this is something which will replace you if you don't evolve. But for somebody who's in a larger space, it also represents an opportunity to really scale up your own processes and make your own operations a lot faster, and really kind of gives you the opportunity to move much more into a strategic, direction setting kind of a place, instead of getting bogged down in the day-to-day ops. So I think that's one threat and opportunity both.
Thanks, Ashish. You want to go ahead?
So in my view, tech would keep evolving, and we will continue to be, blessed with newer tech tools, languages, platforms, which would pose both a challenge and threat. I think so, as long as you continue to stay true to your focus on your customer, and you understand what your core value proposition or promise to the customer is, I think so there are different ways in which you could use each of them to either streamline your workflow or to delight your customer.
Thanks, Hemant. Rupali, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, certainly. Things that we should be, prioritizing or doing it like ASAP. I'm assuming that the hall is full with the marketeers. How many of you are sort of marketeers and trying to decode customer engagement level problems?
And that would be
Raise
majority
hands.
of the people.
Majority? Okay, I'm assuming 70%. The challenges that we need to start solving for is in basics, is in fundamentals, that is having the right user profile, having the right kind of understanding of the user profile, build meaningful profiles. User profiles I'm again coming back to. The experiences, which is nothing but content. The content velocity and the volume and the meaningful value it will add to the customer's life is critical. So it goes back to those whole Philip Kotler theory or management fundas of, user insights, offerings, content, key messages, and then retargeting it with the similar cycle of orchestration. So for me, until unless, and I myself as a learner of the system, so I have not yet decoded it fully, but to some extent, yes. The single line answer to this is keep your fundamentals and be really simplistic of whatever you do, as a marketeer in practice. Well, AI is here, but again, think back meaningfully. Just don't pick the buzzword for the sake of it. You don't have to be trained onto AI. Neither I am trained, but you should be able to understand the use cases, which can be in an agile manner solved using AI. Be it a generative AI. I heard in the room about creative automation that companies are looking at using generative AI. So what are the use cases then can be solved ASAP and can be then prioritized? So the stacks are there, technology is evolving, there is dynamism around us, but the human intelligence and the gut feeling about what should be the be in the moment message really lies in the fundamental of understanding the customer and then building your offers on top of it.
After a very long time, somebody quoted Philip Kotler on stage. My MBA days are back.
So I think for me, what is the biggest threat and the biggest challenge and hence the biggest opportunity is that given things are changing so fast, I think the window of opportunity for anyone trying to do something is shrinking every year. So how do you set up your systems in order to be able to very quickly react and adapt to where your customer is? So with so much volatility and shrinkage of these opportunity windows, can you be more agile? Whether it be what used to be data science 5 years ago, advanced machine learning 2 years ago, artificial intelligence today, there would be general intelligence, general artificial intelligence 2 years later. So as this is shrinking, how do you set yourselves up to be agile and also be able to adapt to your customers?
Building the best product and telling the best story of your product, right? But you likely use a MoEngage to get the message across, right? And that's because they are investing to build the best offering on that front. Similarly, Shopify invests a whole lot on commerce, right? So our focus is to build the best online store offering for all our merchants out there, right? And making sure that you get best future-proof solution. So it's not just about today, right? It's about the future. So if you're talking about AI, for example, we keep the merchant at the center of that build. And today itself, our CEO, in fact, announced Sidekick, which is an offering which merchants can use to run their business day to day using Shopify, right? So that's how I feel the focus will really play out and the customer centricity will play out. So that's my 2 cents.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. This was, I think, quite insightful for everybody. Sticking to fundamental customer centricity, unifying the profile and creating personalized experiences is something I think I can take as a big 2-3 insights out of this particular session. I'm a sales guy. MoEngage does all of these things. So do have a demo of that. And Ravi mentioned about all the capability that we have launched recently. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.